Hello there, beautiful internet, and welcome to Jasper's Laboratory. Welcome to this evening's show. Well, let's see how my mic will hold up. I think it's okay. I've been testing it. I've been using it in other shows, and it's doing quite well. So hopefully we'll have a good evening, and you'll be able to hear me all through the show. I like the fact that I don't have to wear a headset for this, because then I can just keep my surroundings in check and everything and just be there. Hello, welcome to the chat. And it sounds good. Okay, so that's nice. Welcome to Jasper's Laboratory. What do I have for you tonight? Right? I'm going to talk to you about my campaign world and the adventure the adventure that I'm currently running, named A Dramour Mystery, which is an adventure that started with a one-shot. And as I was... too bad about the visuals. Well, thanks. Hey, hello, Hebe. Well, quite a busy chat already. Thanks for joining us all. So I will be talking about my world, Dark Earth. I will be talking about the one-shot I did, and I will be talking about how, from that one-shot, I got to have a new party with people who played Dungeons & Dragons for the first time, and how I set up my adventure for that. Now, I realized when I was preparing this that I realized that I thought I would do this in one episode, and then I would go into the next episode by doing a real preparation session. I think this might be 2 or 3 episodes before we get to that part, but we'll see, because I have a lot to talk about, and I'm just excited to talk about all these things. That for some of these things have been kind of a mystery for a long time, and I'm going to really tell you how I think about world building and stuff. So yeah, it's kind of it feels like I'm exposing myself a bit, and I think that's a good thing, because we have to share in this community. But before we do all that, just do the exclamation mark socials, and you'll see all our socials. Please follow us on Twitch and on YouTube, because that is, well, the biggest thing, you know. If you follow us there, that helps us greatly. Send your subscription our way if you want. We really like that. And yeah, join our Discord. The Dungeon Master has a cool corner there in which he posts some Dungeon Master insights. He's in chat right now, Roger. And yeah, we have the Instagram and everything, but it's all under exclamation mark socials. Then the other thing is that next Monday we'll be doing another parallel projections. Michel will be playing Call of Cthulhu with none other than himself, because apparently they have a module which can be played by one person and learns you the rules of the game, which is pretty cool, and I think Michel will do an excellent job. And that's all in preparation for the next thing where we'll be doing a Cthulhu one-shot with the same people that we did and now here I go, Dusk City Outlaws one-shot with Ash. That was with Ash as the Dungeon Master, but now we'll be having Michel as the Dungeon Master. And, of course, our friends at Top Down Tabletop. Hello, Vix, who's in chat right now. Yeah, so that's going to happen. Then the Tuesday after that's another Talking Void. Roger will be my guest. That's at 9 o'clock Central European Time. And we'll be talking about the longest running campaign and why it is running that long. We are both known for our long-running campaigns, for which other players of Dungeon Masters sometimes say, how do you manage? But I have 2 campaigns running which both lasted around 9 years. He has had a campaign which lasted for 25 years, with some things in between. Not 25 years, right? 15 years. Anyway, long time. And I had a previous one that was running a long time, and even my play by mail things were running long. Yeah, almost 25 years, but it's around. It was 24 in the end. I imagine that. amazing, right? Anyhow, so that's happening, and then the Monday after that, it will be the next Precipice of Dreams adventure again. And I'm so anxious to play Bowen again. And of course, I've been playing Bowen the whole time, but I'm going to shift, I think. So for those who do not know what I'm talking about, please watch our latest episode. Just take a look at what happened, because it was an amazing episode. It was disastrously hard, and we were thrown all around the place and got bashed quite harsh as well. And there were all these things happening. Like it was kind of a space opera thing, I think. And I think we shifted between kind of comedy, in-character comedy, emotional stuff, and tactical combat in that session quite a lot, which is the way we like to play. When we have to get tactical, we have to get tactical, and that's a fun part of the game as well. And we had the option to really use our turns in the order that we wanted, and that was great as well. Anyway, before I start talking about all kinds of other things. Oh, the show is for adults only? What are you planning, Jasper? Okay, what did I say? But yeah, it's for, it's oh, expose myself, of course, yeah. There are a lot of ways to expose yourself. I'm not naked, so that's a good thing, I think. Let's go into this beautiful little introduction, and then we start the show. Funny studio modus from OBS. Anyway, hello. When I started my first campaign, I talked to you about this last time on this show. And the longer running campaign. So that was the Night Below adventure that we bought, and I added a lot of stuff to it. I didn't really have a world. I had kind of an idea of how this world was going to happen, but I really developed the world as we were going along. We had this area called Heronshire, and I introduced that area to my country of Troy, which was the main country my campaign played in, which had this Calverion dude who was the king, which had a council of red robes, and all these kinds of things were happening there. And there was the big forest, and there were all these things, the big cities as well, which I named one of the cities Gul'dan, because that got stuck in my head from World of Warcraft, or Warcraft actually. Which was silly because that was a person and not a city, but I later renamed it to something else. And from that, I started to build a lot of lore. And when I was finished with this lore, and when I was finished with this adventure, I had built another world, another campaign. And really what I did, I was playing my adventures in that campaign. But there were all these unfinished threads left in this world that I never got to play out, because after the Night Below finished, we had some loose sessions, but we didn't really continue playing the higher levels of the characters. We did a couple of one-shots, so to say, but yeah, that's about all. So I had a lot of these unfinished things, and then when I moved back to where I live now, I was away for 6 years, I got a group together and I started playing with them, and I played in that other campaign as well. And then I thought I really need to get back to this other world also, and so I got another group together and we started playing in my Dark Earth campaign, because that's what it was called. I did not invent, I came up with the name Dark Earth at the same time that there was a board game released and there was a computer game released. So I think I was the first one, but you never really know, because I might have been inspired by a poster that I saw somewhere. I don't know. But it's called Dark Earth for a reason, and that's because the world has an outer shell on which life is prominently living, and then it has an inner world that's turning the other way around, and this inner world is kind of made out of mirrors. And within this inner world, there's the seed of the evil god Saruman. And the struggle is between the outer world, where the 11 gods that came from different pantheons fought against this Saruman, who otherwise would have corrupted this whole world. And then there was this other external threat that was even bigger, and for that the evil god and a council of that included a lot of very strong beings joined forces to battle this god. So there were all kinds of things happening, but I ended the adventure on kind of a thing where these sand dragons were going to come out of the ground and would wage a war that would last a very short time. And after that war, they would return to the earth, and nobody would understand why this happened. And this was called the War of the Sand Dragons. And they were really devastating. These sand dragons would, when they blast you with their sand cone, you didn't really die or anything. Well, you could die from the blast, but there was a good possibility that you would survive. But instead, you would get this hate fever. And this hate fever is a thing where if you encounter somebody else who has the hate fever, it isn't a problem. But when you meet someone who doesn't have the hate fever, that person would instantly hate you and would start to attack you. Which in a kind of a frenzied rage, without any possibility of containing this rage against that character who has the hate fever. I thought it was kind of a unique thing, and it has everything to do with the lore behind my world. And I explore this theme in one of my adventures. So that's the background, and after that, these dragons disappeared, but a lot of them had died across the world, because the world wasn't going to let them just kill everybody on there. And so there were a lot of corpses of these dragons lying around across the world. And when you could harvest such a corpse, you could do two things. You could harvest the heart and use it to become kind of a sorcerer with amazingly strong powers. Or you could harvest the rest of the dragon and use it as for spreading this hate fever again, because these dragons kind of turned into sand, and so the sand was the source of the hate fever. And if you, for example, would sprinkle it in a drink or blow it in somebody's face or whatever, they would have to gain the hate fever again, and they would be killed. Which is a great way to assassinate someone. Give them the hate fever and let other people kill that person because they can't resist killing it. So that was the theme, and there were all these sorcerers or people really getting these hearts from these dragons and using them to become very powerful, but at the same time become corrupted by a kind of hate fever themselves. So nobody liked these people, but because of their sheer power, they weren't approachable as well. So during the next so many of hundreds of years, there would be a lot of wars waged against these sorcerers. Not all of them would be waged because they did something, but some of them would be waged because of the hate. Ashley says, that is such a neat idea. I love ongoing status effects that have rooting in lore. Yeah, well, thanks. Now, so that's the backdrop of my adventure. It's now the last sorcerer has kind of been killed about, I think, 400 years ago. It's the year 1560. after the rise of the good god, which is about the same time as those sand dragons attacked. And his name is Paragon. And the lands have become kind of stable again. And we have all these countries that are just doing their kind of medieval things, but with a little bit more tech and a network of magical academies that connect the world together with portals and stuff, so that fast travel is available for those who are willing to pay. The world has become kind of small because of this. It's kind of global. My world is called Dark Earth, but for the people living there, it's just called Earth. And there's only one continent because the other one sank, which has to do with another piece of lore, but I will not go into every part of the lore. And so there's only one continent left. Let's shift to the other thing. I couldn't get it under my camera. So this is my world map. And you can't see it as a whole, which is kind of a pity. But this piece here is the North Pole. And this are the countries that are around it. So it's a very simple map, black and white with blue rivers and golden names, golden and black names to reflect certain other aspects. And this here is silver because there's a gap in there that leads to that inner world, which I spoke of. That's turning the other way around. And then here. This is the country that I'm now focusing on, called Virantor, which means the Green Tower, so to say. Why? I might have an ID. Okay. So that country, I have it here. This is the country. I hope you can see it. Let me see if I can sharpen it a bit. I think this is okay. This is Virantor, and the main. Yes, I did all these by hand. Yeah, I like drawing maps in very different styles. So this is Virantor. And this is the capital of Virantor, named Tornheim. Tornheim is a big city, which lies partly beneath the ground and partly above the ground. It's a round city with an academy in the center and a cathedral and stuff. And then there's a kind of chasm in the middle, which leads to the lower city, which is actually where the river flows towards the sea. So there's a lake here, and then this river goes underground, and it ends at the sea. So Tornheim is the setting of one. Wow, so talented. Well, thanks, Shanks. So glad to hear that. Tornheim is the capital, and it was the stage of my previous adventure in this world before I started the one that I'm going to talk about. And this is cool because they had created a lot of lore for me by simply doing stuff in this world. For example, their adventure was centered around the fact that there would be a resurgence of sorcerers, so to say. There was this guy who had found a dragon heart, sand dragon's heart, and he was going to get powerful, but at the same time he was going to poison all of nobility during a tournament that was being held in the city, so that he would not be opposed by that many high-ups. You should get paid for drawing. Well, you know, I'm never opposed to that kind of thing. So that adventure kind of developed, but it took kind of a lot of turns. But the thing that did happen is that the sorcerer did ascend and lay waste to this capital city. And then, this adventure continued on in a whole lot of different ways. But then, at about that time, I met this group. It was actually a guy from my work who said, "Yo," he actually said "yo," which is kind of Dutch thing. He said, I have this group of friends, brothers, family, and stuff. We are with 6 people, and we play these games every now and then on a Friday or night. And I know you're a dungeon master, and he asked me to play for them, which I thought was amazing because I, for a long time, had not been able to introduce a group to Dungeons and Dragons. So I really started thinking, what do I want to make them feel about this one-off Dungeons and Dragons experience? You know, they were familiar with playing World of Warcraft. They had done a lot of tabletop kind of things with heroes that could get stronger through time and everything, and a lot of kind of settlers games or card games and stuff. But they didn't have the experience of what Dungeons and Dragons would bring, which is, of course, a very non-linear storytelling type of game where you really have to invest into your characters. So I had prepared this one shot that would end on a cliffhanger, and it gave them a couple of things to do in between. So there, for example, it started at an inn. There would be an encounter at an inn that would get them invested in solving something. Then when they were going to solve that, there would be a couple of social encounters. A certain person actually quite lying to their faces. Then they would get into the graveyard, find a hidden stairway behind a tomb, and get down there. Could pass a trap or not, and get into this chamber where this priest was summoning undead and actually protecting a kind of vault with zombies which had their abdomens replaced by kind of glass bottles, so to say, with green gas in them. And the first encounter in the inn was a green gas zombie that would attack them. So, first off, this was supposed to be a one-off, and that didn't happen, of course. We ended up doing a free shot. So now that was the idea for the adventure, but where to implement this in my world? And this is where I think when you become a more experienced dungeon master, you know your world, and you can actually do a lot of one-shots become short campaigns often. Yes, Shanks, so true. When you're an experienced DM and you have this world built out, you can really start digging into the lore and getting people to really invest, or you to invest in your world by telling people what's happening. And so I decided that this one-shot would take place in the same place where the other adventure was taking place. But Tornheim had fallen, and there was this city at the coast, which is this one, which is called Dramor. And Dramor was the biggest city near Tornheim. And so when the city fell, it got, first off, a lot of people died. And then one session free. Oh my god, I love this game. Yeah, same. And short campaigns turn into long-term campaigns, glances at Shanks. Yeah. So Dramor is near Tornheim, and it had a run. Well, a lot of people were migrating from Tornheim to Dramor, which was a city that was not prepared to handle that many people, because in Tornheim there were like 1 million people, and this city could house 100,000, which is also big, but especially for a medieval type of city. So that was kind of the backdrop. So now I could really... I came to this table, and I had made these excerpts of character sheets with simplified a lot of stuff. I asked those who wanted to play a wizard or something to take those cards and explain that it was a bit harder than the simple melee classes, but I also slimmed down the spells and everything. And I started to tell them about the rules, and there were these 6 faces just looking at me, you know, totally captivated by what I was telling them, because they had never experienced such a thing, and they had no idea where this was going. I set up my Dungeon Master screen, put my books behind it, and they were just sitting there in the near dark with this light on the table and the snacks prepared and stuff. And they hadn't known what was going to happen, so it really was a surprise. Hebe asked, how long do you need for a map like that? For this one, I think about 2 to 3 hours. Yeah. Now I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so these faces were looking at me, and then I started introducing them. I said, and then I told them about the world, about this continent of Illuin, which was the last continent still left on the world. And on this continent, there was this country called Virentor, which they were a part of. And they might have come from different directions to the city. They might have fled from Tormheim or whatever. Didn't really matter at that point. And I described the struggles that the country was in because of the fall of Tormheim. I explained something about the Dragon Wars that many years ago, and about the Dragon Sorcerer that had now risen from the ruins of Tormheim. And I told them how the streets were filled in Dramur with those who are trying to find a new home and stuff. And they were totally captivated. And then I zoomed into the last battle, which was the inn that they were. I set them around the table, and this guy came up to them and said, do you want to play cards? And through this mechanic, I let them introduce their own characters in a way that was quite awkward for them, because they had never done this. But you know, everything can happen at the table, and I think I'm able to make people feel comfortable enough to really do this, to let them know that they can tell stuff without being laughed at, and they were friends as well, so there wasn't really a problem there. And soon enough, there were these 6 characters sitting in front of me. Hebe is asking, and a campaign map. So do you mean like the large map that I showed you of the continent before? Well, that took a long time, because it was pretty difficult to think of all the things while I was drawing it. But I guess it took about 10 hours or so. It isn't really that detailed map. But you know. And you can make your maps as detailed as you want. This one is quite detailed, but you know, at the same time it leaves a lot of gaps to interpret the map as well. I could have drawn it quite meticulously as well. So I need a map maker. Name your price. Well. Let's call me. Let's put it that way. My goodness, such dedication. Yeah, you know, but I just love drawing maps, so it is no problem for me. I just start one and I just sit there for hours and really start getting into it. One of my proudest map is my Tornheim map. Okay, I'll show you that now, because now I have to do it. I'm going off topic here, but who cares? I'm gonna show you 2 other maps, because, you know, I can't, otherwise I would be really going off topic a lot. So I like to use a different style for every map I do. So no 2 maps are really, well, you can see things that seem kind of the same, but then I do something with core or whatever. Have your people contact his people. Yeah, right. So this is a city map that I really love, which is really detailed. Where's my Tornheim map? And the other one I can't find that I wanted to show you. So yeah, I'll hold that one for you for another time. He is my people, know him, son. Would be cool to see how Jasper draws the academy. DM Shanks. I understand. Actually, I have a video that I still have to edit. As you might have noticed yesterday when I was talking to about Bowen Says, I can't get into the editing tools, and I just have to call Michel to do stuff. But I have myself drawing a map that lasts about 4 hours. That was used for one session. It's a battle map. Yeah. So talking about an academy. The academy is... where was the... here. This is the academy. In this case. So it's very detailed. I don't know if you can see it when I move it closer to the... You can see all the streets and stuff, you know. The piers. Yeah. So... this is one that I'm really proud of. It's a capital city in my other campaign. Anyway, let's go back to this one. So now I had them invested in the adventure from the start. I think my cat is trying to get in or something because the door is doing funny stuff. Anyway, I had them invested in the story that I was going to tell, and so. They were sitting there, they were introducing themselves, understanding that they could interact with the barkeep, they could interact with the guy who wanted to play cards with them, and that he was not just kind of a quest giver, but just a normal person that was there at that time. And this is really something I wanted to convey, that a conversation could take any direction, and they could choose to do whatever they wanted in that circumstance. Then this person came in, kind of bashed into the seats, and they were shouting at them, and then one person was getting up, and the zombie-like person smashed his face in, and he dropped dead, and then they had to get into action, because, you know. Well, long story short, the guy was a regular patron before he died, and so they found his wife. They got to know where he should have been buried. They addressed the gravedigger, who finally confessed. There was a lot of things happening in between, but this is a storyline. They went into the tomb, came to the priest who was guarding a vault with a lot of these things, and the vault had the number 46 on it, I think. I tried to do 42, but, you know, not everything can be 42, because it's the answer. It isn't the answer to the universe and everything. And they saw all these zombies, and that was my end scene from the free session one shot. Yeah, and then they were hooked. Which would mean a third campaign. And I really had to think about that. And then a couple of things happened, which I'm very proud of, so to say, is that they really wanted me to play, and they said, it's okay if it's on a monthly basis. And we could cover expenses. Let's put it that way. Okay, I really have to close this door because I'm getting... At the same time, let's have a sip of water. So I was really proud that they wanted me as their dungeon master. But then I started thinking. I had 6 players, and by session 2 of the one-shot, I had the 7th player. They wanted a monthly game, and I had never done that. It's always been weekly or bi-weekly, mostly bi-weekly actually in the past 10 years. They kind of invested in me. So I felt a kind of a responsibility. I'd never done it that way, being a dungeon master. So I really started to thinking, how can I keep this group together and make every session a great experience for them? So, as you all know, preparing a good session 0 with a fold-out plan towards the future doesn't take you 0 hours. It takes a lot of hours if you want to really plan it. And I think that I invested like 40 hours into this first real session that we were going to have, which was in the aftermath of the thing that happened. I asked them to write a background for their characters. And then I started to think about how I wanted to do it. I'm going to show you one more map, by the way. This is the area that the adventure takes place in. This is Dramour. This is Tornheim again, so it's a kind of zoom in of the face. And most of the adventure by now is taking place in this kind of area. So they haven't traveled that far. Because it was a new world? No, it wasn't a new world. What do you mean by because it was a new world? No, it was my ongoing campaign, so to say. But you have to explain because otherwise I can't answer it correctly. But I asked them to write a background. And a player latches on to everything you're saying. So what they heard... 10 hours. You're going on to the drawing of maps again. No, it's because it was an old world that I had to re-envision because I had drawn many maps, but they weren't up to my standards anymore that I draw them now. So, I have so many maps that are on grid paper and are really square. And when I see them after kind of a couple of years, I really look at them and think, no, not okay anymore, just going to throw them away. Then I start doing new ones. This one, for example, I like this map. It's different, it's practical, but it isn't my best one, so to say. It has some height definition and mountains and stuff. Your prep for my first session. No, it was 40 hours, not 10 hours, 40 hours. And this is why. So I asked them to write a background. And now you have all these kinds of different players who latch on to everything you're saying. I had 7 players, and they all wrote a background. Well, that's to say, 2 of them did it just before the first session started. 2 of them got into contact with me on a regular basis and sent me kind of... essays, which I loved. And the other 3 were kind of in between. They had these kind of one-page stories with some names in them, some locations and everything. And of course, I had shown them my world map, and I posted that in our Google map thing, because I like to use Google Maps and give each player a map to put their biography background in. And then, add player information to a certain other thread and have my DM map connected to that stuff. So I was, and this is part of the preparation, communicating with your players. And I think that with 2 of them, with one of them, I think I talked for like 5 hours about this background. And when I had to read it again and again because he was adding, that took a lot of time as well. Then the other one who did a lot of work, he went in way deep. He took my maps, he cut out little pieces of them and said, hey, I'm from here and I traveled the world and this is my background thing. And so I went here and here and here, and were all these cuts. And he was like the Google image library. He was adding art and stuff, and really describing how he came to have certain objects and stuff. And that was really helpful because they gave me a lot to work with. So I incorporated, I read through those stories very well. And then he had the in-betweeners who did 1 to 2 pages of background stories, which I was... I thought they were all great, even the ones that didn't prep for the first session. I don't mind if they really do it, but it helps me prepare for a great experience. And in the end, they have a great experience as well. And if they give me less, I add more, so to say. But it's another kind of preparation work that I have to do then. So these in-betweeners, they were kind of, they had these stories where they were from this community and they had a father and a mother and something happened and then they traveled to a certain other place and stuff. And then I had to start working because, so we had the orc barbarian, Golrum was his name, son of Garage, because he was a World of Warcraft fan. And he was from this savannah. And on this savannah, he had this tribe of traveling half-orcs. And he had gotten a symbol from his grandfather that was a kind of a chalice symbol. And his father was the wearer of this obsidian gauntlet, which was his tribe's name as well and stuff. And at a certain point, the sandstorm came and wiped away his people. And he started this journey and then he got mad and attacked his people. And then he started this journey for repentance. And because he had heard of sand sorcerers in the city of Tormheim, he thought that he might find an answer there. Bam. That was his background story, and it had a couple of names in it. It had areas in it. Nagar Garush, which is a savannah kind of country in my campaign, suddenly came to life for me as well because I had never done anything there. And I understood how he had traveled towards Dramur and where he was now because... so that was a great thing to have. Then the other guy, who had a 12-page essay, he came from Tornheim, and he really did his whole background in dialogues with a lot of people that were happening. And his background was more like, mother died, raised by his father, but his father did shady stuff. He was a tiefling sorcerer. And he, when his mother died, he got approached by the church, and they tried to help him grow up, but then his father didn't like that. He rather have him working for the Umari, who was this criminal organization which his father was climbing the ranks of. And then he made a mistake with the Black Ravens, who was this other clan in the city, because they were trying to get money of them, and then he threatened their son, the son of the high up of the Black Ravens, and instead of giving them the money, killed his friend. So they had to flee, and then there was a gang war and stuff, and then he started to disbelieve in the Umari a bit, and then they thought they had seen his mother's killer, and so he went after that one, and he used magic accidentally, and then he understood that that wasn't really his mother's killer, it might have been his father, and so he confronted them, and then he had to flee. That was his backstory, which was great, of course. You cannot do a lot with that. Then you had the clerk with a past where he had been an alcoholic and a gambler, and he had built up debt until the church found him and made him go straight, so to say, and so he was going from there. It was a compact thing, but it was okay. Then you had the monk with a hermit background who said that he was raised in a monastery, and then his good friend had disappeared on this trial in the mountains, and year after that he had gone after them and had gotten to Dramur. That was his background story. Oh, and he had been an orphan that was laid at the entrance of the monastery. You had the half-elf ranger who really wanted to have a bird but couldn't get one, and his grandfather, who was an elf, did have one, and he was a half-elf, and he didn't really get respected in his community, and so he finally went off to find friends, so to say, because and to find an animal companion. He was conclave Beast Conclave ranger. So that was kind of his journey. And then you had the dwarf, who was a mountain dwarf. Okay, this is the kind of player who is quite silent at your table and gets addressed by his buddies, so to say, and his family, because his 3 nephews are in the party as well, when he's looking at his mobile phone. And everybody said, this is a bit annoying, we're playing this game. And then he's simply searching for a spell description or an ID for a mount or something, the kind of silent until he speaks up, and you understand that everything he does is really dedicated towards what's happening at the table, but in a different manner. I like those players. I have one at every table, a bit of the silent type, who's laid back, who takes everything in and suddenly comes with this theory and stuff. And he apparently had read up on the Dwergar, and he said, well, I look like a mountain dwarf, but actually I'm a Dwergar. My name is Reudrach, which is an anagram for Dwergar, and I want to do something with that. And I'm a paladin, conquest paladin from Tornheim, so my family is kind of dead, I think, and And then we had the halfling rogue, who was from Dramur and had this dark past and had changed his name and was constantly fleeing, but had now returned to Dramur and was kind of wanted to know where he made a misstep that caused his parents' death. Did I discuss them all 7? I think I did. Oh, hopefully I didn't forget one. Let's see, the 2 long ones. Okay, let's put them down on paper because I wanted to do that anyway. So this is how I think about my campaigns. You have the main characters, so to say. You have, in this case, you have Bo Chi, who is the monk. Is this large enough for you to see on a normal computer? Because I can't do it for mobile phones if you're watching on a mobile phone. You have Auron, which is the sorcerer of the group. You have Velar, who is the ranger. You have Gorum, who is the barbarian, frenzied berserker. You have Victorian, who is the cleric. You have Findal, who is the rogue. And you have, Reudrach, who is the paladin. Yeah, that's all of them. And I think I discussed all those backgrounds. Shank says, I love it when players come in with a well-fleshed out backstory that gives you hooks to use in the campaign. Yeah, so I kind of love it both, because I think the short ones give a lot of... let's explain. So I have Auron, who is the one, the sorcerer with the quite long backstory. And then I have Victorian, who is from the same city and has a cleric backstory. So I was trying to connect all these stories because in my head I was thinking about how can I make every session, you can't make every session great, but how can I try to make every session an experience where everybody feels like they are connected to the story. But because on a monthly basis you forget stuff, or if there isn't anything for you to do in one session, then it's 2 months between you actually doing stuff that's very interesting. So I had to connect some of these stories, and I decided that and then I decided on the parties that were going to be a large part of this campaign. And I thought, what I need, I have to do something with the Umari, Black Ravens, connection. So, because the Umari and the Black Ravens were part of Auron's backstory, but Findal, in his own town, had done something wrong to a criminal organization. And that criminal organization was going to be the Black Ravens. So we had two characters connected there, Findal and Auron. Then I thought, Auron had a past with a clerk, and Victorian is a clerk and was saved by a clerk, so to say, which is kind of the same theme for both of them. So that connected them. I'm not going to write down all of the connections. Then Velar, his great-granddad was a famous ranger, and I thought, well, that's cool. Maybe this famous ranger has a connection to possibly two of these characters, namely Gorum and Reudrach. How? Well, Reudrach, as I discussed, was a kind of dwergar in disguise, and I had come up with a story for that. There's this dwarven hall, Brenter's Hall, which is the Hall of the Dawn, which lies in the High Tor Mountains, which was this prominent new dwarven city that got cut out of the mountains quite quickly, but then got waylaid by Dwergar found their way into the city and laid waste to the dwarves there. And because this happened, Moradin came in and cursed part of the Dwergar to become to look as mountain dwarves, and put a curse on the whole of Brenter's Hall that none of these mountain dwarves would become Dwergar again until the last of the Dwergar had gotten out of Brenter's Hall. But by then, Brenter's Hall was already a prominent place, which had a big safe, and in this safe there was this item that led to the Feywild, which had a sister clan from Gorum, which also had the Black Obsidian Gauntlet in it, and there was a connection between Gorum's tale and that sister clan, and Ermhar, the father of the grandfather of Velar, was invested in that because originally, 400 years ago, he had defeated the last sorcerer with this great grandfather of this orc, and he felt guilty that his offspring was divided between two worlds to keep these obsidian gauntlets apart, because those were the weapons originally held by that sorcerer. So Ermhar had gone into Brenter's Hall to find that weapon and had died there, and his animal companion had perished there as well. So now I had a kind of four-way connection where Velar, Gorum, a three-way connection by then. Velar, Gorum, and Reudrach were invested in this Brenter's Hall. So that was a thing that they could get connect to. Then at the same time, Victorian had built up debts by this person who was called the Master of Coins. And this Master of Coins was also in Brenter's Hall, which is kind of another story, but I'll add that later. So 4 of them were connected to Brenter's Hall. Then 2 of them were connected to Dramur in a sense that they were part of the criminal world. And they all met there. And so now I had these... and Gorum was very prominently saying that he wanted to go after this sand sorcerer thing. And so I make that kind of the main theme for the adventure as they were guessing what they had to do. Now I'm going to have to spend a bit of attention to the chat again. Welcome back, Fletchling. Looking feedback on homebrew class I've been toying with. I do need to get the subclasses built though. Well, always willing to take a look at that. You can post it on our Discord if you want. I did listen to your voicing. It was you, right, Fetching? The voicing of the troll. And it was great. I totally agree with you. You really did an excellent job portraying that. I had this feeling of really, it was a really good build up towards, a dramatic climax, so to say. And the deep voice, I could almost hear the thanks coming out of your mouth, so to say. So I really liked it. Thanks for sharing that. For those who haven't heard it, I think it can still be. You might have to repost it in the out of character thread again, because we had to switch a couple of channels because there was a mistake in our channel structure. But you can hear it there if you want. He did a good job. But for your subclass, you post it there, and I will certainly take a look at it. I've done it before, so yeah. And then we had Bochi, the monk, who I thought I will not connect him to any of the stories, but I will spin his story in between the other stories and build a kind of suspense when they are traveling, and it might connect at a later point in the adventure. It might become start to make sense by his part of it. Nicely done. So that's how I went with this. But then I thought, this is kind of background connections. And now I have to start to think of the main story, which gets them invested and be able to do these things along the way. And I had introduced this vault at the start of the campaign, which was in the one-shot. It's always cool to start building an adventure around this person who really is your kind of quest hub, but also becomes a fatherly figure because of the way he supports the characters, and they can always come back to him as a sort of mentor, and he kind of gains strength through the story as well, and can direct them. So I had thought of this guy who was called Horatio Wittegar, and he was this old mage, 90 years old, living in his cabin, and his support, a lady named Johanna Silverschijn, was in town because goblins had stolen his spellbook. She was talking to the Watch, and the Watch had congratulated the party for helping them rid this vault with zombies. Well, help them find this vault of zombies, and made it possible for them to get rid of an evil that was lurking beneath the city. So that was the connection why the Watch was giving them the assignment to go with her towards that cabin of that small wizard tower that the wizard was inhabiting, and starting them off on a real adventure. In the meantime, so the first session really started when they came out of the vault, and they were taken towards what is it called? Like a kind of podium where they were congratulated by some of the city more prominent members, namely the lady Julia of Dramour, whose husband had perished in the Tornheim accident, and this priest that was there, who was called Thomas Torval, which was the guy who had taken in Victorian, but who I thought Victorian, he's always been a bit shady. But still, he had taken him in after he had his drinking and gambling problems, and then he also got recognized by Auron, who knew that he was the father of his friend from his youth, who had betrayed him twice, and you can post it in out of character. Yeah. And then let me see. So he knew that priest, and then at the same Auron knew that priest as well because of those early memories from when his mother had died. And then there was a guy, Emeritus Zond, who was the local leader of the Black Ravens in the city, who Findal knew and was scared of, so they didn't show up at the ceremony. They were in the kind of in the background. And then things started to happen because they got a plot, they got a little bit of gold, and then they had to leave again. And then the priest was stabbed into his chest with a knife with a letter on it, saying that he owed the master of coins 2,000 gold pieces. And that was done by the daughter of Torval, who was the youthful friend of Auron. So this is where I really started making connections really quickly, and all in a kind of logical sense, because I dislike non-logical things. And so this Johanna, who came to the city and got pointed towards this party by this guard, that wasn't an accident that happened, because when should I tell it at this point? Yeah, well, I'm making you understand why I do stuff, so I have to tell it. So I told you about the vault that was in the catacombs, and that vault is kind of an escape plan for someone who's trying to gain power in the city. And the person who is trying to gain power in the city is this guy named Orison Bone Marrow, and he's this half fiend, big bad guy who has disguised himself as an elderly wizard. And he he sensed from his home that his vault was breached, took to scrying because he had taken over the body of a divination wizard, and saw his son there, namely Auron again, who had a tiefling background. Always thought that it was his father who spurred him, but it was this half Cambion kind of fiend thing. And so he immediately took an interest to the party because he saw this sorcerer features that he had not seen in any of his other things that he had spawned during his reign on Earth. But it's all a mystery for them. They were just thinking, oh, we are getting to know this person by accident. What they did not trust is that a wizard would lose his spell book to goblins. They thought that was pretty strange. And there I had the first real task to try to convince them as a dungeon master that this wizard would indeed lose his spell book to these goblins. And this was actually kind of a subconscious thing that this Horatio Whittaker Orson Bone Marrow person did, because he could have drawn them in by a lot of other things, but this would lead them to a previous scene where this Orson had done things that were really evil, so to say. And so that started them on their first session. So to summarize, because I think I have to summarize some stuff here. Are you still following what I'm saying, and is it even interesting? That's what I want to know as well. Because I'm talking a lot again. I'm talking about how I try to spin these tales in my head. And it's all quite logical for me. And I try to make it a logical story for you. But I hope that I'm doing so. And I have a sip of water while I wait for some replies to that. Yep. Well, that's the straight answer. Took some typing, but there you go. Thank you, AB. So now I had set up quite a few things, and this was so the session was this. It was they got rewarded for having found that vault with zombies in it. They got connected to a couple of people that were on the stage there that were either friendly or not friendly to them. The cleric had been stabbed in the chest, and because I had said previously, you don't really trust this cleric because you heard strange things about him when you were still in Tornheim. For some reason, he made the connection that this guy was the one who stabbed him in the chest and was responsible for wanting to claim his debt, which wasn't the case, but it was his daughter that did it. That has a whole other backstory behind it, why it was his daughter that did it, and this guy was sitting on that stage at the same time. I had introduced a couple of persons to a couple of people that suddenly felt connected to this world. They even went after this Torvald to ask him if he had anything to do with him, but he was just like, what? Well, no, of course not. And he was speaking the truth. And this was kind of an exercise for them as well to get to understand that the world will not always give you the answers that you want, but you might get a sense of that something else is playing in the background, so to say. So they now knew that the Black Ravens were, at least Findal knew that the Black Ravens were active. Aaron knew that a couple of people that were part of his of his history in Tornheim were there. Victorian had been stabbed in the chest, and they were now going to this wizard, who soon enough said that he had traveled with Ermhar, who was the father, the grandfather of Valar, to Brentor's Hall, and had left him for dead there while he was fleeing this big evil that was happening there. And that made a connection with Reudrach, who knew what Brentor's Hall was, Valar, whose grandfather it was, and then it also made a connection of Golrum, because in that moment he saw, Horatio saw the symbol of the chalice of the seven, which he was carrying proudly, and he said that symbol is from a group like 400 years ago that defeated the last Sand Sorcerer, and this guy Marhook was the leader of that, and Ermhar, your grandfather, was also a part of that group then. Whew. Yeah. And so that's... and I had all characters connected except for the monk by then. And I think I ended the session when they were leaving the this might also have been two sessions, I suddenly realized, or it might have been a very long first one. When they were leaving Horatio's wizard tower and going to this goblin community that was somewhere near them, and along the way, for the monk, suddenly everything turned gray, and he saw this figure standing in front of him with a kind of golden face dressed in blue, who was pointing at him and didn't really say that much. Then I had them all captured in a single session and knew that they were connected to the world. So you know that I was going to tell you about how I came I wanted to prep for the next session, and I wanted to tell you everything that went before that. Well, I'm not going to manage that because it's all. I am going to finish the episode soonish now. So I have now done the first session, gave you the reasons why I did it that way, gave you some lore about my world, and yeah, this is how I start building my adventures, really. So next time I will make a sheet which has all the adventure lines and the connections to the different characters listed, so we can go over them and kind of get a feeling for where this party is going. And then I'll make you understand what the main thread is that is going to be the thing that holds them all together through Act 1. So to say, they just finished Act 1 after 3 years of playing. Remember, this is like 36 sessions, and they're level 9 now. So I'll make you understand what that thread will be, and then I'm going over a couple of things more quickly towards what I consider to be the end of Act 1, and then I'm going to introduce you what I did in Act 2. This might be two Jasper's laboratories away by now. How I expanded on the world for them to make them realize they are part of still a bigger world. And then I'm going to prep the next session. So that's about all I have to say for tonight, because if I go into the next step, I will not be able to finish that. As I said, I've tried to connect all the backstories to the adventure, make connections between the characters, and make them invested in the campaign in one session. And I think I did great. They certainly thought I did great, because at the end they said mind blown, so to say, because it was quite different from the one shot, which was not personal at all. It was just these handouts that I gave them. And of course they started to, at the end of that one shot, there were already characters, so to say. And only one of them changed their character from what they were in the one shot. And we decided that he had always been in there. Nice, dude. I learned a lot. Thank you. I hope you all learned a lot. And if you have any questions, please keep asking them in chat, because then I can answer them, because I might glance over things that I think of as normal, but you might think of what's happening here. There is a priest to listen. A priest to listen in. Have a good stream, Jasper. Gonna head out. Yeah, well, I'm gonna end it as well, Fix. So you were there for the whole thing, Fix. But thank you for joining. Always a pressure. Lol. Can't type. Okay, cool. Okay, well, I had to step away for dinner prep. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you told me I did a good job, so that's nice. Take away from it what you want. If you have questions for the next episode, because things weren't clear, take them with you for then. And then I'm going to take a look at Fletching Gamers, the Fletching Gamer, his class, make some pointers, and I will probably discuss that in the next Jasper's Lab, which will be in 2 weeks. So Fletching, look out for that one. Maybe I'll comment something in OC, but I think I will dedicate a short part of the start of the evening to that. Shanks says I also had to step away, but I will go back and catch up on this one. Great seeing you, Jasper. Thank you, Shanks. So that was it for this evening. I really like this kind of shorter shows compared to Talking Void and the other ones. Keeps my energy up, makes me invested, and apparently gets you invested as well. So thanks for joining me. See you in 2 weeks. And of course I'll be seeing you next Monday. Next Tuesday on Talking Void, 9 p.m. Central European time. But the evening before that, it's at 9:30. It's Michel with his kind of with Michel Call of Cthulhu thing. And then the Monday after that is the Precipice of Dreams again, which I'm looking so much forward to. I was building my 5th level character just before the show, and I think I'm going to continue that when I finish this show. So thanks for joining. See you soon. Bye, Ro.